Hello and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at the Weakest Goeth to the Wall, as it hath been sundry times played by the Right Honourable Earl of Oxenford, Lord Great Chamberlain of England, his servants, sometime in the 1590s. Opinion varies precisely where you want to date it. It's been a confusing time. It's been a very interesting time. We've had a lot to discuss over the previous two sessions, but we haven't necessarily come up with any definitive answers as to what one does with the Weakest Goeth to the Wall. We've definitely know where we are with the term the Weakest Goeth to the Wall, because the play did actually helpfully say it in the middle of the play, in fact. So that was a relief, I felt. It felt like, we could all go to the interval off tenterhooks, because we now had some idea where it was landing with its meaning. So we have this final session to get through the final scenes of the play to find out, where it lands at the end of everything. Will it be subject to the curse of the final session, or will it frolic forth in happiness of light of a successful resolution to all its various plot threads? We shall see. Today, reading Eperonoun and Diana is
Aliki, Chapple, actor and translator, based in the north of England.
Reading Lodowick today is
DiRoberto, academic, Tucson.
Reading Odillia and Villiers is
Briony, Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
Reading Emanuell today is
Hi, I'm Cheynne. It's super early. It's 6 a.m. I'm in California. I'm also an academic. Nice to meet y'all.
Reading Frederick today, otherwise known as Ferdinand, is
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'll try to keep the names correct.
Reading Bunch today is
Alan, civilian in Suffolk.
Reading Nicholas and Messenger is
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu, and I'm an author based in Romford.
And reading First Soldier, Nuntio and Oriana is
Hello, I'm Lynn Freitas. It's also really early where I am. I'm in the northwestern United States.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and moving us forward. We are going from scene 14 today. Actually, we meant to read scene 14 last time, but we just had so much to say that, this little scene got left on the wayside. So, to get us back into the zone, let us join scene 14. Enter Villiers, the merchant, with Oriana and Diana. Have we reached England yet?
No. How shall we, gentle sir, requite the grace which in so great necessity we find at your kind hands, but with our daily prayers implore the heavens for your prosperity,
Which we will never cease to do, so long as life remains in our distressed bodies.
These words are needless. What I do to you, the duty of a Christian binds me to. Remember then the promise you have made, that if your husband live not, whom yourselves do verily imagine to be dead, that then you are my wife.
That promise I will keep unfeignedly, with hearty thanks to heaven, that if my husband do not breathe this life, my misery yet sorts me at the last a second choice, so loving and so kind.
And I right willingly shall call him father, that in such virtuous sport respects our need, without impeachment of our honest fame, debarring wicked lust to blot the same.
When I do otherwise, then as beseems the reputation both of yourselves and me, convert your love to me to deadly hate, and may all tongues condemn me with reproof. Come in then, take possession of your own. My lands, my house, my goods, and all is yours. Upon only my sister's portion, which I have upon our troth plight vow of marriage, if so your husband live not, set apart and ordered in a readiness for her. Come, lovely mother, and thy virtuous child. When angry storms are past, the heavens do smile.
And exit. Okay, this is an odd little scene. Is the merchant... What precisely is he just taking them in, or is he transporting them? What is being bargained here for eventual marriage if your husband happens to be dead? This is a weird scene. It's quite a weird one to start the session with. I'm sort of ruining that we didn't close last time with it, because that would have been another 15 minutes of discussion. Aliki.
Well, I mean, everybody wants Oriana.
Right.
And I guess this is meant to contrast, the virtuous offer of marriage with the dodgy passes from Jacob.
Kinda. It's difficult to pass. These words are needless. The duty of a Christian binds me. Remember then the promise I made. It's like there isn't even a wafer thin gap between the two propositions going on there. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I feel like Oriana and Diana are like the good luck pair. It seems to be that nothing phases them, and they always seem to get out of every jam they're in. And now they've even got like a backup father and husband.
They've got
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sort of virtue rewarded, right? Yeah, like they're like heaven is protecting them because they're good.
Yeah. Eric.
Yeah, but if you think about it, this is actually quite advantageous to them because A, they have a protector in case things go wrong, and like sort of, women by themselves, we have the whole, even now, a woman walking down the street by herself would be sort of, she would welcome company that is either female or male, but sort of, that she actually knows, not sort of, not just anybody.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. Is he just offering them a safe harbour, as it were, as just somewhere to stay? I mean, I don't know where they are. This is the geography question I was asking. Have they got to? Is this in England, or are they in France, or where are they? I don't know. We don't necessarily need that answer now, but geography has been an occasional issue because we're occasionally not really sure where people are. Okay, I think we're going to move on because it was a very short scene. I'm sure we'll get more data on that later. Scene 15, enter Ferdinand, so he thinks himself, Odillia and Lodowick.
Thus, Ferdinand, I see that we must part.
Our needy state enforceth it, sweetheart.
Will you to France?
To France.
And to the wars?
To my advancement, war must be the mean. I cannot dig, I have no handicraft. Our coin is spent, and yet I cannot crave and thought her want. Your want doth wound my soul, when I consider what you are.
Oh, peace! What am I but the wife of Ferdinand, by love and faith unto thy fortunes bound? Oh, let me follow thee to those French wars.
Oh, prize your honour and my credit more. Were it convenient, we would not divide. But as it is, I must go, and you must bide.
So says discretion, but true love repines, that want should sever those whom he combines. But pardon, sweet, my speech is spent in vain. You must depart. When will you come again?
Soon, if success do answer my desire.
You'll write to me?
As oft as I consent.
You'll leave me here?
With this assured friend whose kindness in abundance we have found.
Alas, good sir, my means are weak, you know. In sooth, I am no richer than I show. Where wishes, wealth, your want should be supplied, and have no power your persons to divide. For I protest in all my life before, I ne'er saw two whom I affected more. But this adds weight to mourners' leaden grief. Words may bemoan, but cannot give relief. For part you must, extremity to shun. In wars is wealth and honors to be won.
And fame and death, and then I am undone.
Why, death dwells here, you see my daily trade. For men of peace, how many graves are made? Your spouse with wealth and worship may return, and bring you joy, that at his parting mourn. Hope so, and hinder not his good intent, for that for his honor and your welfare is meant. Oh, that my cottage where ye must remain were for your sake the glorious house in Spain. But as it is your own, it is, and I, poor host, will tend you carefully. But I am tedious in persuasion, and you foreshow the present time's occasion.
Oh, do not mount him on the wings of haste, that goes too soon.
Dearest, mine hour is past. You gave me leave to go. Revoke it not by lingering here. There is no good fortune in God.
You'll wear my favour?
Else let heaven hate me.
Farewell, sweetheart.
Dear love, God comfort thee. Father, I leave my jewel in your hand.
I will be careful.
Sweetheart Ferdinand.
What says Odillia?
Nothing but God boy ye.
And exit Ferdinand eventually.
Such loath farewell my wife and daughter took. God bless them both and send us well to meet. Take comfort, lady, though this hour be sad, his life return with wealth may make you glad.
Enter Sir Nicholas and Bunch. Sir Nicholas hath a paper in his hand.
I have sought thee in every seat in the church, doubting thou hast been doused and fallen asleep in some pew.
Sworn from the chancellor's a belfry you have sought him, and in the steeple, for fear he has crept into a bell and been asleep. Lord, how do you, mistress? Fie, why do you weep?
Fair lady, let pass mourning for the absent. 'Tis like sorrowing for the dead, either idolatry or hypocrisy. I cannot tell which. I could preach patience to ye, but your own wit is as much as my learning. Your husband's absence you must bear, yea, and bear him also. In mind, I mean. There be but three things that save us or condemn us. That is, thoughts, words, and deeds. And you may have comfort in all, and so be saved in them all. Your own good thoughts, good comfort, your friends with friends' good words, a better comfort, and your husband's good deeds at his return, the best comfort. Thus much for instruction. Command my service day and night, to ride and run to do ye good.
So, Master Vicar, I am glad you have done.
For this time and place I have, because I have somewhat to say to my sexton. Here is a thing in writing, sexton, that is sent to be published through all the French king's dominions. Read it, let me hear it, and then thou shalt know my mind.
And so Lodowick reads the next passage, even though it's not properly marked that way in the script.
To all Christians, and especially to the king's liege people, Lord Eperonoun and the rest of the French nobility send greeting. Whereas the thrice noble and renowned Prince Lodowick, Duke of Boulogne, was by the king's majesty at his departure to go on his devoted pilgrimage to the Blessed Sepulchre, appointed joint governor, regent, and protector of the realm of France, together with that pernicious arch-traitor Mercury, Duke of Anjou, during the king's absence. And that the said noble Duke Boulogne was by the treacherous, unjust, and unlawful forces of the said Mercury expulsed out of his dukedom, lands, territories, and revenues, and dispossessed of his place, if not of his life. For as much as the said notorious malefactor Mercury hath since proved himself an open enemy unto his native country and king, we have thought good to publish and proclaim that whosoever can bring true notice of the safety and life of the said Duke Lodowick shall have 20,000 crowns, and he that doth present him alive shall have 50,000 crowns, to the end that the said most honorable virtuous Duke may be fully repossessed and restored to all his lands, liberties, and places of authority in this realm of France, dated the last of May, etc., subscribed by Eperonoun and other.
By my holy orders, thou art as well worthy to be a vicar as myself. Thou readest so well. I prithee, soon at evensong, read this to the parishioners. I cannot be there, for I have promised to bowl a match with good fellows this afternoon at Guynes for a wager, wet and dry, viz. 2 gallons of Gascoigne wine and 2 French crowns. I can stay no longer. I fear they stay for me.
This light, I never saw him make such haste into the pulpit.
Hear me one word, good master, ere you go, and grant me one petition, which is short. All these French crowns dare I assure mine own, for I do know where the poor Duke remains, and will present him to old Eperonoun. My suit is that you'll take this honest bunch to be your sexton whilst I'm away.
I am content. Give Bunch the church door key, upon condition thou wilt say, evensong to the parish this afternoon. and read that publication to them. Then go thy way tomorrow if thou wilt. Lord, how time passes. In my conscience I burn daylight. 'Tis 1 o'clock at least. Fare ye well, fare ye well. I come i' faith, lads. I come, though I come late. I hope to lie as near the mistress as any of ye all.
And exit Nicholas.
Well, I see I shall have your office, and I trust you'll bestow your spade and your pickaxe upon me, that I may grind them sharp, to dispatch a grave quickly. And I pray you, as ye travel up into high France, send the plague and the pox and as many diseases as you can down into this country to kill the people, that I may get money for their graves making.
Here, take the key and toll to evening prayer. I'll do my master's bidding ere I go.
Sancti, Amen. God give me joy and luck in mine office. Now, boys, beware that you wipe not your noses on your sleeves, for, an ye do, off goes your arm with the church door key. And dogs keep out of the chancel, ye shall smell of the whip else. And honest prentices, if ye please me, I'll not ring the 4 o'clock bell till it be past 5. An occupation and an office? Now I see I shall thrive.
Exit Bunch.
And will you go and leave me here alone? My only friend now Ferdinand is gone.
Ask of your thoughts if they can counsel keep, which if upon your honor you assure, you shall partake a secret very strange.
My faith and honour be engaged for it.
Exterior shows express not always truth, nor do imaginations ever fail. My sexton's case doth cloud nobility, and if opinion do not reason wrong, rich noble blood flows through your pure clear veins, which conceit draws these secrets from my soul. What fortune scorn that sorrow-tossed Duke Lodowick of Boulogne tells this tale to you, that can conceive, conceal, and counsel me? Say, lady, for I know you are no less. Have I not cause when proclamation tells that Lodowick shall receive redress of wrongs, to claim the due that thereunto belongs?
Great cause, my lord, and I to be content in this poor coat to rest me patient, until my husband come or fend for me.
Oh, had these tidings come ere he had gone, then he nor I had travelled alone. For, lady, I affirm it constantly, I love the gentleman religiously, which in my bettered fortunes he shall find. And then to you I purpose to be kind, that what you are, speak freely your fair mind.
Emanuell, Duke of Brabant, called me child, till him for love of my Ferdinand beguiled.
I said anew you were no vulgar dame, for sparks of honor will burst into flame. Hapless Odillia, but most fortunate, compared with my poor wives and daughter's state.
Where be those ladies? Let me them attend.
Oh, knew I where all grief were at an end. I hear that London is their mansion place.
But shall they not be sent for by your grace?
Not yet, Odillia. First I'll visit France, where if good stars my state do re-advance, and grant me power to free my native soil from those that now her wealth and beauty spoil, I may with comfort then call home my joy. Till then their fight will but revive annoy.
What can you prize so highly as their sight?
Women discern not men's affairs aright. I prize mine honor, my country's good, more than my wife, children, or my proper blood.
A bell tolls.
Hark, the bell tolls, the sexton I must play. By promise once, tomorrow I'll away. Let me receive some token at your hand, that I may carry unto Ferdinand, and this forget not, for a final end, to come to us if we for you do send.
And exeunt. Okay, there's lots of things to unpack in this scene, lots of good things, but I'm just going to start with a question. Where are we?
Yes.
Because we thought we'd established we're in France, but we don't seem to be in France because they keep saying they're going to go to France. So where are we?
Oh,
Are we
Yeah.
in England?
No, his wife and kids is in England, or might be in England. He thinks they're in England. And I thought last time we established they was in France, but he keeps saying he's going to France. I don't understand anymore. Does St. Nicholas have? Is it St. Nicholas? Is it in a parallel universe? He's just got a parish in a pocket dimension, just off,
With a TARDIS.
off the Burgoyne or something. I don't know. Alan.
I think we established that they were actually in Picardy. And I wonder whether there's one of these geographical quibbles going on about where the borders of France and the various provinces, or what we now think of as provinces, are. But the answer on Nicholas is he hasn't signed the sanity clause.
I like Nicholas. He just offers anyone a job.
Well, right.
It's like he offered Lodowick a job based on the shortest of job interviews, and now he just says, "Oh, just hire him instead. He'll do a job." Actually, I kind of think Bunch would be a good sexton. Actually, it feels like it's like
Give me the money.
Yeah, well, he's quite keen on the idea of yes. But can we have some disease locally so that we have more graves for me to dig? Because then I can get more money out of the system. Yeah, nice thought there, Eric.
Well, also, Nicholas kind of has this thing of he's almost like the priest in what was it, Misogynist, where he's like, someone else can handle the preaching and stuff. I'm just gonna go down the pub.
Yes, I don't mind being the priest, as long as you don't ask me to do, like sermons and preaching and stuff, because, all that stuff, that's just such a drag. Yeah. Other thoughts? Lynn?
So just to remind everyone, our readers at home, Lodowick is Frederick, Ferdinand's father. So this is his son and daughter-in-law. No, he feels this great affection for them because it's a romance. We're in the romance world now. Blood will out, right? So here he is saying, "Oh, I am so fond of you, young people. I will do everything I can to look out for you, and because I just love you. I can't explain why. It's because it's your son and daughter-in-law."
And more importantly, he's just read out effectively his own call back. Repeal. Repeal of people trying to kill him. So, and that's really great opportunity for the actor to be going, and the Duke of Bullet, whoa, in the middle of the speech, and just be, and everyone looking at him slightly funny, just going, why are you so odd? Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think that edict brings a whole new meaning to wanted dead or alive, because it's like 50,000 crowns if you bring him in alive. So I was just like, okay, that's a nice one.
It's a good freebie, isn't it? Hi.
Yeah.
Ta-da! Money, please.
But that the reward will somehow. Well, I'd say I know I'm wrong as often as I am right, maybe more. So that money will end up in the hands of someone like Bunch or Villiers or somebody like that, an ordinary character who could use that money, because once he gets his dukedom back, he's not going to need his own reward.
Oh, he might pass it on as a dowry.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Villiers says, I everything, what's mine is yours, except for I have to take care of my sister's dowry. So,
And the scene opens with this thing, our two romance characters coming on and going, "I must be noble and go to war. Don't go to war, my darling." And it has that sort of weird cardboard cutout quality that these two have in the play. And it feels deliberate. That's not a criticism. It just feels like that's just the game they're playing, and that's just what they do. Eric.
Well, also he does go, "Yeah, we need money, so I'm just gonna bounce and get some money and come back."
Yeah. Oh yeah. There are pressures at home, and stuff, and maybe it will go well, and yeah. So yeah, it's you get the impression that all of the plot lines are now pulling together. They're all pulling together. It is one story. It's a very complicated story when you look at it from the beginning. But if you look at it from the end, it's all very straightforward. It's all very simple. He said. Any other thoughts before we move on? No. Okay, let's go to scene 16 then. And as we last saw him, there's a lot of chair action here for Eperonoun. Enter Eperonoun, brought in his chair.
So, from this place, I shall behold the fight betwixt both armies. Now, go one of you, and with our leaders, presently give charge. The others stay with me. Oh, might the sight of Eperonoun be like the noontide sun, with the reflection of his feeble eye to melt like wax the courage of our foes, and make the Frenchmen stiff as adamant. Then could my heart excuse mine idle hands, that they bear not a part in this conflict. But now defiance from each party flies.
Sound trumpet first. Enter Ferdinand pursuing Don Hugo, cutting him soundly.
A valiant gentleman, whate'er thou art, and by mine honour very nobly fought. I have not seen in all my life before so young, tender, and effeminate face father such rough and manly fortitude. How like a weighty hammer did his sword fall on the Spaniard's shrinking burgonet, that, had he not betook him to his heels, this hour had been his latest hour of life.
Alarum, enter Ferdinand again, pursuing Don Hugo.
What? Still in chase? He will not give him one till he hath slain or made him yield, I see. A right-begotten cockerel of the game. Whence may he come? As I remember me, I never saw him in our camp till now. I prithee go, range through our battle ranks, and when you overtake him, gently crave he will vouchsafe to come and speak with me. Our heart's enamoured on his valorous deeds. Spaniard, some more of such a haughty breed would make the stoutest of your hearts to bleed.
Enter Ferdinand.
Here he comes, fair bud of chivalry. Welcome to Eperonoun. Give me your hand. I thank you even with all my very heart for this good service you have done today. Are you of France, I pray you, or what place is honoured by your noble parentage?
I am, my lord, the Duke of Brabant's subject, a younger brother whose inheritance is little more than what his sword shall purchase. And for that cause, admonished of these wars between the haughty Spaniard and this realm, the noble Bourbon gave me entertain.
Are you his soldier? Trust me, for his sake, I love you better than I did before. And for some confirmation of my love, take this, in earnest of a greater good.
I humbly thank your lordship, and will rest a faithful servitor to France and youth.
Nay, stay a while. Refresh your weary limbs. A little intermission will do well amidst these sweating gorboils. Holy rude, there runs a thought into my labouring mind, which, from my heart, sends gladness to mine eyes. Methinks, the more I view this gentleman, the more he doth resemble Boulogne's Duke, the virtuous Lodowick. Both for face and limb, he and I were fellow mates in arms against the Turk. Such deeds of hardiment did Lodowick show as he hath done this day. Even such a gesture had he when he talked, as mild and affable in times of peace as he was stern and boisterous in the wars. All these apparent in this towardly youth. Earl Lodowick's vaunt doth wet my cheeks with ruth.
There's a shout within. All together now.
Yay!
Yay!
A shout within. Enter a soldier.
What means this cheerful shout?
My lord, the battle of the Spaniards is dispersed. Beside, I bring to you this happy news. The worthy Duke of Boulogne, long desired and much bewailed for his injury, lives and returned about an hour since. At his first coming, armed in complete steel, challenged the Duke of Medina at his tent, and there, in single combat like himself, and like a father of his country's weal, hath slain the proud disturber of our peace. for which the soldiers, as you heard, my lord, did fill the air with their applause and applausive shouts, thronging about him in such cluttering heaps to see his face and do him reverence, as scarce he hath free passage to this place.
Oh, that I had legs or wings to fly, that I might quickly satisfy mine eye with sight of him whose company's more worth than heaps of countless and unvalued treasure. But where's the other leader of that rout, surnamed Don Ugo? Is he 'scaped the field?
This gentleman, before Medina died, gave him his passport to his longest home. But good my lord, I almost had forgot. The latter part of my behooful message, there is a stranger duke, of whence my haste suffered me not to be instructed, that likewise came with aid unto our camp, and is well known unto my lord of Boulogne.
Now, if I were enclosed within my grave, I would as willingly forsake the world as woeful prisoners, many years detained in dark obscurity, could be content to change the dungeon for a public walk. But first, let us embrace our loving friend.
Your honor may sit still, he's coming hither.
And we're going to pause before he does come hither, because there's quite a lot to take in here.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So Eperonoun, as someone's already pointed out in the chat, he's doing the commentary on the battle. I mean, he's just literally sitting there. He's got one of those lip mics, and he's going, and yes, and they're coming into the field now, and oh, then they're down. It's Lynn.
One of the things that's odd about this text is the pace is really syncopated. So we have a rather long exchange between Ferdinand and Eperonoun that doesn't really move the plot forward. It sort of it delineates their character, it illuminates their characters, and you know, a little dramatic irony because, oh, this boy, he's so brave and he really reminds me of my buddy Lodowick. But it, for me, it drags a little, and then you have this little exchange with the soldier coming in and plop, 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 you know, and so much happens. So it kind of drags, and then like we've got all this action compressed into one little scene with lots of reporting. It's just, the pace is very weird.
And it's, you know, it's like we don't have the budget for the actual battle scene, but we'll just we'll just plonk someone down in a chair. That'll do. So it's really interesting what it's doing with its resources. Aliki and then Alan.
Eperonoun only seems to speak in long speeches. That was true yesterday as well. He just kind of goes on and on and on, and delivers a fair bit of plot quite often, or at least backstory.
Yeah, but I mean, it does feel like he's there. He's just cosplaying the Battle of Alcazar. I mean, it just feels like he's been wheeled on from a play from about 10 years earlier, and that he knows it, and he's just going, "This is the part I was born to. This is in my contract. This is what I get." It's fascinating. Alan.
Yeah, I think there's probably an awful lot of sound effects going on in the background that aren't queued up in the script. I think a modern production would certainly make the most of SFX or Foley for that. I mean, you'd make that scene about twice the length if you got your hands on the Foley for doing it.
I might not go quite that far, but yes, I'd probably put some layering in there. And you know, you could put more battle fighty stuff in there if you've got people who can do it. And you know, I think, but the important thing is, you know, Ferdinand's great in a fight. That's the important thing that we're getting here. He's winning. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I you really tickled me, Rob, when you said he was cosplaying the Battle of Alcazar. They just stick a man on a chair, and then every so often have someone run across the stage with a sword and looking fierce. I thought that one of the strengths of Weakest Goeth to the Wall is that it doesn't devolve into those Turkish plays, because those Turkish plays usually have a lot of people getting strangled and killed for almost apparently no reason, you know. Whereas this one, it's more uplifting. It's more of an uplifting plot. Whereas those Turkish plays would go down in tone, this one goes up.
Yeah, I mean, apart from the two unfortunate burghers who sort of try and bribe the Spanish to not kill them, nobody's really bought it. I think actually, I think we've been relatively bloodless, and yeah, it feels this interaction does feel more romance plot. It doesn't feel like a history play style thing going on at all. I don't feel depressed. Other thoughts? Okay, so yeah, we've got a lot of people. Duke of Boulogne, other people coming in. Duke of Brabant's coming in now, and oh yeah, might be some complications now as everybody's going to start recognising each other in different ways. I'm sure they might not. For all I know, it's an early modern play. The disguise might be too good, but we'll see. Enter Lodowick as well as Emanuell, Duke of Brabant, with soldiers.
Right worthy Duke, whose victories ever shone through clouds of envy and disaster change, make rich my bosom with embalming thee, and wherein aught my restraints my faltering tongue, let vows for words distinguish my content. Welcome, oh, welcome to ungoverned France, whose working garment of unflicting war is now cast off, and she hath girt herself in peaceful robes of holiday attire. And you, my lord of Brabant, as I think.
Your friend Lord Eperonoun and what he may.
Welcome, in sooth. Your presence, with the rest, hath made me happy, and my country blessed.
These greetings, Reverend Earl, exceed desert. Had it been Ludwig's fortune to have done 10 times more service than this day's exploit, it might not be sufficient to redeem the lack of his endeavors all this while. But heaven and you, I hope, will pardon me, considering I was forced from hence to fly.
Aye, and most wrongfully enforced, my lord. But he that was the author of that ill, the traitorous Duke of Anjou, by just heavens now at your mercy stands. One, fetch him forth, and Lodowick repossessed in the place, if that authority his highness gave. Judge and condemn according as you please.
No, let him still be prisoner where he is. Your wisdom hath discovered his abuse, and our dread sovereign shall determine it. Were it my wrongs were greater than they are, I will not be a factor for myself. Now what is he, my lord, of all this train, by whom our other enemy was slain? Don Hugo de Cordova, fain I would know that brave gentleman, and for the fame add somewhat more unto his honored name.
Therein, my lord, I shall account myself much pleasured by your grace. And this is he, my lord of Brabant's subject, as he said.
My subject, traitorous villain, how he lies. But I will be revenged upon his crimes. What may I call your name, young gentleman?
My name is Ferdinand.
I know it well, and little thinks he 'tis the sexton's hands. Draws forth a sword to give him knighthood here, but I am glad it is my fortune's chance to be of power to show him my grace, whom I admired when first I saw his face. Kneel down, young Ferdinand, and know again, rise up, Sir Ferdinand, Ludwig's knight.
And rise withal, base Ferdinand, false wretch, viler than puddle dirt, thou spring of hate, never begot but of some dunghill churl. Durst thou vow thou wast my subject? Durst that impious tongue pronounce my name, whom thou hast most ungratefully incensed? Villain more abject than thought can decipher. But I am glad that we are met at last. Here in this presence I do challenge thee of most notorious felony and theft. Let me have justice on this fugitive, you peers of France, or else you injure me.
What moves the noble Brabants to this rage?
Wherefore stain you virtue and renown with such foul terms of ignominy and shame?
Virtue, my lords, you galled a rotten stick. You spread fair honor's garments on the ground and dignify a loathsome swine with pearl. This shadow of a seeming gentleman, this gloss of piety deceives with your sight. Here's nothing so, nor so, but one, my lords, whom I have fostered in my courts of arms, and to requite my careful indulgence, hath Judas like betrayed his master's life and stolen mine only daughter to an ally, this sensual fire of his enkindled lust, for which let me have justice and the law.
You shall have justice, though I cannot think so fair a shape hath had so foul a forge.
Alack the day! Misfortune should so soon disturb our friendship was so well begun. Come hither, Ferdinand, and tell me truth, if thou be guilty as the Duke informs.
I not deny, my lord, but I am married unto Odillia, although unworthy far of such a gracious blessing. Yet her love was forward in the choice as well as mine.
See how he goes about to cloak the feet with love and marriage, no adulterous swain, your hedge betrothing covenant shall not seem. Where is your sweet companion? Where is she? But we will talk of that another time. Why, is this my lord Boulogne to so remiss? And will not presently be giving in charge a pair of bolts be clapped upon his heels?
Without offense, my lord, unto your grace, myself will undertake to be his bail, and he shall answer, if you so be pleased, your accusation when you will appoint a day of hearing, be it tomorrow next.
And even tomorrow let his trial be. I will no longer have the cause deferred.
Exit Emanuell.
And Ferdinando, in this time of need, old Eperonoun will stand thee in some stead. Good Duke of Bullen, use him kindly yet, whilst I do follow this sin-censured lord, and try if tears may drive him to accord.
And exit Eperonoun.
Now, Ferdinand, here's none but you and I. Know you not me?
I cannot call it to mind, my lord, that I ever did see your grace till now.
Bethink yourself. Look better on my face.
There is, my lord, with pardon me, spoke a man in arts, the sexton of a church, with whom I had acquaintance. He, methinks, is somewhat like your excellence, or else I do not know where I have seen your favor.
The sexton there is Duke Bullen here. Be not abashed. 'Twas I to whom you left your fair Odillia, and 'tis I can witness that you and she are lawful man and wife. This may be some defense against the stream of angry Brabant that pursues your life. Come, I have sent in private for the dame, and by all means to shield you both from shame.
And exit. Once again, the nature of disguise in the early modern of, you just change the clothing. The clothing tells you who people are. Status is very important in terms of clothing. So it's like, sexton, duke, you're just sort of similar, but I'm confused. So I like that. Cheynne.
I actually like that you brought that up, because I think a lot of times when people are reading plays or just listening to it, they get kind of lost in the stage direction of it. And especially during this time of like the modern period, clothes were a very huge distinguisher of what class you're in and what status you were at that time. So that's an interesting point that you bring up.
Aliki.
Lynn was talking before about the staccato nature of timing. There's also the staccato nature of messages and travel. They've arrived kind of at the same time, even though apparently they set off for the war, Lodowick and Frederick, quite a bit apart. Now, Lodowick has somehow managed to send for, I've forgotten her name, Odillia, in the middle of a scene while he's there giving speeches. He's also sent for Odillia, and I'm sure she'll be here in a scene. And just really kind of time is strange here.
Yeah, it's everything's sort of happening at the same time, but not quite. And yeah, distance. What's distance? Hey, distance just slows the narrative down. Alan.
The pre-Einsteinian drama, time and space mean nothing.
Well, if it's pre-Einsteinian, then we're in a world with a fixed constant time that is absolute across the nations. Whereas I think we're in a post-relative universe where time is relative to the individual character. So, in fact, I suspect it moves differently depending on how virtuous you are. I think the virtuous always move slightly faster than the evil people. I think that's just how it works. Other thoughts? Cheynne?
Do you guys think that this play has sort of picked up in pace a little bit? I guess going back to what Lynn and Aliki were saying about like the whole staccato nature of it, because I feel like in these last two scenes, there's just a lot of exiting and re-entering, and this person's exiting, but these two people stay, and this person leaves, and then this another person comes back. So there's just a lot of confusion going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric?
Yeah, it's basically like Newton's cradle kind of thing. Because it takes time for things to happen, but also it's not always the same amount of time. What I liked was like, so do you recognize me? Huh? Do you recognize me? And you kind of get that moment of, I think I've seen you before, maybe. Yeah, I mean, excuse me, but I think there's this dude who is kind of unshaven and ugly and stuff, working in the next village or something. I don't know, just I like the recognition or lack of recognition thereof.
Well, it could be from Frederick's point of view. He doesn't want to step into a trap, because if you've got a really, really, noble person, the last thing you want to do is say, "Yeah, didn't I meet you in an inn?" Or you were digging graves. You don't want to say that to a duke, even if you're fairly certain you know who it is. It's like that could be awkward. Emanuel's turned up to throw a spanner in the works and make everything very, very mean. I mean, it's a bit mean, And it's really ruined Eperonoun's day. He was having such a nice day. I mean, and everyone was happy. They'd won. Good stuff. Actually, just going back to the whole thing about them having a fight, I thought they were having a truce until they decided what happened about Mercury. Did they just decide? Actually, no, we'll get the battle out of the way and get that done.
Didn't they say, okay, Hernando's like, okay, well, I'm done. I'll just go home now. Yeah. And now he's dead. Like, so that seems like a little continuity problem.
But yeah, maybe something will resolve itself. Maybe it all makes sense. Maybe it will. Any other thoughts before we move on to scene 17? Okay, so scene 17. It's enter Sir Nicholas with a letter. What is it about Nicholas and letters? Odillia with a letter in her hand, Bunch and Nuntio.
Must we thus, fair lady, forego your sweet company?
You see, my lord of Boulogne sends for me. With him remains my husband, Ferdinand. So you perceive how much it me concerns to leave this place to better my estate.
I cannot blame a fair lady to leave a bad thing to go to a better. My friend, thank the Duke of Boulogne, my quondam sexton, for his kind letter. I may say that, ne'er a priest in Picardy can say beside, that I have had a duke to my sexton, be it spoken without pride.
The devil ye are. Be not my predecessor, I pray ye. I was his acquaintance afore he knew you. Friend, do my commendations to him. One Bunch that botched in his city, ran away in his company, and dwelt where he dwelt with Dutch Jacob Smelt. And for my better grace, ye may say Barnaby Bunch, that has his sexton's place. Hark ye, friend, have you brought no diseases with ye, have ye?
What dost thou ask so fond a question?
Marry, I spake to him when he went, to send the plague or the pox or some disease of high France down into this low country, to lay the men of Ards low, that I may have money for their graves and marry one of their wives. If you have any infirmity about ye, as the stone or the dropsy, the pip or the palsy, I'll give you as much for it as another have left in our parish.
Will ye not write Sir Nicholas to the Duke?
To tell you true, lady, a letter of 6 lines is 3 days' work for me. The Duke knows my mind as well as if I did write. If he have a better benefice or two for me, tell him I will come.
Then we come, both the vicar and the sexton.
Why, Bunch, I thought you would have gone with me.
Truly not thus advised. If you had no husband, so. But having a husband, no. I can be but well, and the hardest of my learning is past. I can say amen without book, chime 2 bells at once, whip a dog with both hands, know the difference of the strokes in tolling for men and women, grease the bell ropes, turn the clappers, sweep the church, help the vicar on with his surplice. All this I have by rote, you may tell the Duke, as if I'd been bound prentice to the trade. For making a grave, come all Picardy for the price of my pickaxe.
We stay too long, Sir Nicholas. Farewell, and farewell, Bunch.
And exit Odillia and Nuntio.
Heartily to you, pray ye condemn me to your husband and farting Andrew.
Ferdinando, Bunch, thou mistermest his name.
So have you done many a one in the first lesson, God forgive ye.
Let that pass amongst the rest of my venial sins. And tell me, Bunch, tell me, where's the best liquor?
At the Green Dragon, gentle master vicar.
Will the dragon sting?
From the head to the heel, he will sting your brain so that he'll make your feet reel.
Let's go play for 2 pots. Away, Bunch, away.
Then the parish is like to have no service today.
Exeunt. It feels like Nicholas and Bunch are well joined together, aren't they? They are a well-oiled unit in both senses of the term.
Lubrication. I'm not sure oil's the liquor, liquid in question.
Aliki.
I, on the contrary, feel that it was a mistake to make Bunch a sexton, because now he's become very bloodthirsty, where he was a rather gentle soul when he was sewing people's stockings up.
Yeah, it's not saying you want to. I mean, as I said in the chat, it's a good opening gambit for today's times. You know, hark ye, friend, have you brought no diseases with you? Have you? You know, I feel we can use that in day-to-day conversation. It isn't often we get that in an early modern play. Have you brought any diseases? Any diseases? Show me your lateral flow test and move on. Lynn.
No.
No. So yeah, this poor chap Nuntio, who doesn't actually say very much. It's basically just go, what? It's basically a feed for a gag, isn't it?
Yeah, and you can't have Odillia, traveling across country by herself, so she needs an escort. So he's a messenger escort.
Yeah, a master farting Andrew. Bunch doing some wordplay there. But I like the fact that Bunch gives us his sort of daily working pattern. This is all I do all day. This is the order of what I do. I grease the bell ropes, turn the clappers, sweep the church, help the vicar on with his surplice. All that stuff. Whip the dog. It's a very repetitive life he's got there. But yeah. Other thoughts? Again, short scene, just to oil the wheels, move from the previous to the other, and make us feel we know we are. Cheynne.
I don't know if I'm overthinking this, as Alan suggested last time, but I've noticed that in some of the lines, like for Bunch, it's not in blank verse. Is that on purpose, or is that because it's supposed to be read or performed differently?
Yeah, I mean, it's always an interesting question about the difference between what's going on when it's in prose and when it's in verse. It's not always constant. It sometimes plays funny tricks on you. Sometimes it's also down to the printing. Sometimes things should be in verse and they're actually written in prose, and sometimes vice versa. And sometimes it looks like it might have once been verse and it's all been hideously mangled. With this play, it does seem very clear the comic characters doing comic stuff are in prose, and that seems to be to do with the shtick. that they're performing. Whereas the romantic, more serious people all have beautiful blank verse. Thank you very much. So yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's exactly what's going on here.
So is it like a sarcastic joke to put the romantic people in blank verse and the comedic people in prose?
Possibly. I mean, it depends on the tone of the play. In this context, maybe it's a bit difficult to tell. It depends on the nature of the verse as well, which verse form you give people. Because if you give romantic people, rhyming couplets or in fourteeners, then the odds on it being a serious might decrease depending on when it's written or very short lines. Aliki, then Alan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in fact, Odillia speaks in rhyming couplets, or did at least in her parting scene with Frederick. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's no absolutes on that, but it does give you, as an actor, something to play with in terms of what might be going on. Alan, then Lynn.
Yeah, I think that last little bit with Bunch and Nicholas could almost be sung because it's got that sort of rhythm with the end rhymes. And I think we did have Bunch singing way back when he was first introduced.
Mm.
So it may be that there is a tune to go with it.
Lynn.
Yeah, these higher status characters tend to speak in iambic pentameter, and I have noticed that almost every line that Lodowick has, at least the longer speeches, he always ends in a rhymed couplet.
Mm.
Like almost always. So I don't know what that's supposed to signify, but other than like he's the romance hero, he's the hero of that genre that's going on within the play.
Yeah, so something there about what is always making statements. That's sort of the way you use rhyming couplets as sort of to punctuate points or something. Yeah, maybe. Any other thoughts? No. Okay, we're creeping towards the end. We're creeping there. We're almost there. We might be almost said to be on the cusp of the end, but we may stop and start a bit during this scene. Eric, before we do that.
Well, also we've had so many genres of thing, and now we're going to get another one that is kind of like we've had, the war, the romance, all that stuff, and now we get a court drama as well. So it's like to add to the genres that we're including in this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't read ahead, so I have no idea what's coming next. But order in the court. So we have scene 18. Enter Lodowick, Emanuell, Eperonoun in his chair, Frederick with the provost, and most ominously of all, a headsman.
My lord of Boulogne, many things might urge your speed of justice for just the wrong as the regard of your own princely state. In case of him that is an equal peer, the right of princes which should underprop an honorable and direct revenge. I could perhaps say, were it not injustice, the blood of Brabant should deserve of Boulogne, but I disrobe and strip off all regard, and lay my wrongs as nakedly before you, as come an infant born into the world.
My lord of Brabant, what I freely urge is not so to slop or turn the course of justice, which must sway all your actions and must stand steady and fixed in one certain point, but only by entreaty to your grace to supple your proceedings in this case.
My lord of Brabant, may old Eperonoun, by license of my lord the Duke of Boulogne, have leave to speak? An old fool that I am, by your good patience, let me say my mind. Now, troth, I cannot speak for tears. Alas, there's something I would say. Oh, God help age, for I were in my grave. Justice may cut off Ferdinand. Where is he? Art thou there, poor man? Alas. Justice may cut him off, I'll not deny, but turn him with his sword amongst his foes, and he that buys his life shall buy it dear. Alas, poor boy, would I could do thee good. Oh, to see him lead an army in the field would make a man young, were as old as I. I would thou hadst died where I saw thee last, even in the midst of all the Spanish army. On that condition I had died with thee. God help an ill mischance soon falls, and still the weakest go unto the walls.
Defer me not, my lord. Let me have justice.
My lord, you must have justice, that you know. But yet, my lord of Bourbon, might our love rebate this sharp edge of your bitter wrath. With what an easy sweetness should your judgment be relished of every gentle heart.
My lord of Boulogne, urge me not with pity. He against whom I am thus pitiless. Rob me of pity. Proceed unto your judgment.
God help, pity is banished from the earth, I see. Thou pitiest none, nor no man pities thee.
Old man, thou do test.
Thou art a naughty lord, I tell thee, Brabant. The day hath been, thou durst not tell me so.
Have patience, gentle father. True noble lord, he will have death. Who's there? Command the lady presently be brought.
And Lodowick ascends. The lady is brought in.
Lodowick of Boulogne, is it not enough thou have delayed me in the case of justice? But bringest this hateful whore onto my sight to vex and grieve my soul? I tell thee, Boulogne, thou wrongst my honor with indignity.
Ah, words, any tongue that called thee so, but his Odillia, I would make that word heretical and full of blasphemy.
My lord of Boulogne, I will not abide her.
My lord, you must abide her, since for her you seek the life of this young Ferdinand. Fit law so strictly follow the offense. Since law so strictly follow the offense, take all advantage of your evidence.
Oh, by my troth, a goodly wench indeed. Alas, poor earl. Fair princess, speak thy mind, and I'll stand by thy side. And yet I cannot have this whoreson age. Well.
I will not let her speak.
All's one, my lord of Bourbon. We will hear her. Speak freely, princess, and without control.
Right reverend lord, if only for my sake, my father seek the death of Ferdinand. I here acquit my husband of the fault, although I cannot of the punishment. I was the thief, I was the ravisher, and I am only guilty of the fact. How like a robber did I lie in wait with beauty to entrap his gentle youth? And like a spirit, when he hath walked alone, how was I ever tempting him to love? How with my favour did I work his breast, which at the first was stubborn, iron, cold, till I brought his heart to supple temper, to take the soft impression of affection. With these allurements would I oft entice him. Though thou be base, my love shall make thee noble. Though thou be poor, my power shall make thee rich. Though thou be scorned, my state shall make thee reverenced. Let any of you all think with himself, were he so mean, so friendless and unknown, wooed by a virgin princess of my birth, so young, so great, so rich as is myself, thinks he would not do as he hath done? He's guiltless of the fault. I was the cause. Let me endure the rigour of your laws.
I think we're just going to pause and unpack some of that. That's quite an argument to bring to court. I mean, I'm really enjoying the sort of opening gambit of this scene. Especially, I just love Eperonoun and his sort of. We've got stage direction saying he weeps. He's clearly his eyes have been bawling for almost the entire scene. I mean, he just has absolutely he's distraught. It's considering that he's supposed to be this great general. In charge of the slaughtering of thousands, and no, this has really got him, and they called him, and said that he doticed. Oh, he is not happy about that. What a naughty lord! Such a good line. Thoughts in the room about any of these elements? I'll go to Lynn, then Cheynne.
Well, what we have is lexical shift going on there. The words naughty and mischief have become considerably weaker in the last 400 years. They used to be actually quite strong pejoratives. That means wicked. It doesn't really. It's a much weaker word now, but it sounds funny.
Yeah,
us.
we might, if we want to not make it funny, tweak the word in production.
And wicked would scan the same way. So,
but
it means wicked.
But it also sort of works. I mean, I quite like it.
Yeah.
It depends on what tonally we're going for in this scene. Are we actually worried for his life? I mean, is anyone seriously worried that Frederick's going to die?
No, because we know who he is. At least we should. And I really love Odillia's speech. I was in love with him, and I knew I could make him love me, and that was what I did. I'm just like loving that whole thing. That it's just like she's taking so much responsibility and agency, and it's like I chose him. Yeah.
Shame. And then Aliki.
Two things. One is this, I think, kind of going back to what we talked about between prose and verse. Could this play be some sort of like a parody of the times, kind of making fun of other plays? And kind of piggybacking off what Lynn just said about Odillia and saying with her speech, is it just me, or is Odillia very like sounds similar to Ophelia? I don't know.
I don't know what you mean. Don't know what you mean
Never heard
at all. That's an edit there. That's fine. 1524. Good. The question of parody is an interesting one. I think we should all bear that in mind at the end, because there are scenes that do seem to be mirroring other material. Whether that's actively what the play's doing, I don't know. I mean, one of the problems is we don't have a complete catalogue of all the plays, so it's always difficult to say, you know, it's only when you trip over one where you go, oh, that's obviously X and that's obviously Y. It's harder with this one, even though I keep bringing up Battle of Alcazar. That's the only one where I've sort of gone, there's a really potentially clear parallel here, but even that's a bit tenuous around the edges. Aliki, then Lynn.
I'm going to argue that this is, whether it's a direct parody, that this is comical. Between, on the one hand, Bunch, and I really think, I've been thinking more, the more I've been reading him this session, Eperonoun is a comic character. He keeps going, oh, my aching back, I would kill you if I wasn't so old, damn, I'm old, kind of thing, which is quite funny. And this whole weeping thing, there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, I had to actually blow my nose, but there's you can put nose blows in the middle of this.
Yeah.
Lynn.
Yeah, as far as like echoes of other texts, because dating is rarely absolutely solid. It's hard to know whether this is echoes or anticipations of other texts that we are more familiar with about this time. So is this parody, or is this anticipating something that other plays will later take up? And the question, a production is definitely going to have to answer that question of tone, but I feel like romance is almost always a little bit self-parody because it's so predictable and it's so extreme, and it's so incredible. It strains credibility so much that maybe it's a little bit of parody or self-parody, but in a loving way. It's reminding me a little of that. What did Alan call it? Twice a Night that we did, I don't know, over a year ago. The Night of the Golden Shield and the Night of the Silver Shield.
Oh yes, Climon and Climades.
Climon and Climades.
Say that very carefully.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Which is definitely a parody. I mean, there's no that is romance literature just taken to the turned up to 11.
And there was just something so charming about that play, and I think you could get that kind of charm going in this as well.
Yeah, and if you haven't watched the video for Climon and Climades, or the two Valiant Knights, we do recommend it. It is an absolutely fabulous play. It is a crying shame that we haven't got around to doing a second look on it yet, because it is just ridiculously silly. And there's a lot of wrestling to get that one on its feet again. Briony, are you waving or?
Yeah, I've thought, sort of thinking about it. I don't know. I know it's just the way my modern ears have heard it, but I struggle to deliver that Odillia speech with a straight face, because it was very much like, to me, like the modern day victim blaming, but the victim was blaming herself, if that makes sense. Like it was totally my fault. Did you see what I was wearing? Oh my God, he couldn't have helped himself. Like, but just, yeah, there was just something a bit ridiculous about it.
Yes, and that was in my mind. Just performing that. What is the audience response to that? And what is the performance spin to that? It's and you're right. It's just it makes. There's almost an element of, well, you just have to test it with an audience and find out what happens. And good luck to everyone. Eric.
Well, also it's kind of the I am Spartacus of but like romantically, it's not his fault, it's mine. And yeah, it kind of I don't know, it's just interesting sort of how she takes the blame.
And we have had in plays the comedy plot of, or the comedy denouement of, no, don't kill him, kill me, I'm the one to die, and where we had multiple people saying, no, kill me, and they're all sort of fighting everyone off. So yeah. Okay, well, we'll say I paused mid-scene. We've had Odillia's defence. Let's see where the court takes us next. Frederick responds to Odillia's passion-filled remarks.
Oh, thou dost wound my love with too much loving. Thy beauty is not prized but with death. That man hath not a soul that would not die 1 hour to enjoy thy blessed company.
Eperonoun is sadly muted, though.
Oh nay, must I weep out these poor eyes, unless I never saw a cause so full of pity.
My lord, proceed. The law adjuges death. To him that seals the heir of any prince, that's not a prince that doth commit the act. He is only my slave, one that was found by me, being a child not fully 2 years old, and as should seem begot in bastardy, and by the parents to that wicked fruit, left in the river sieges, there to be drowned. What time the wards in Burgundy fell out, and that my duchess perished in the flight. Nor never did I know what was his name. Being so young, he could not tell the fame. Only upon his musketeer and band he had an F, by which I did suppose his name was Ferdinand. So I named him.
Oh, blessed heaven, what sound is this I hear? My little boy was lost even at that time, just of that age and by that riverside, whose name was christened Frederick by my father, and had an F on everything he wore. It is my son. Be silent yet a while, my lord of Brabant, that I take exception both unto your indictment and your plea.
As how, my lord of Boulogne? Do me justice.
He is indicted by the name of Ferdinand, and I will prove him christened Frederick, and thus is your indictment overthrown.
It is a fallacy of my lord Boulogne. He had been never called by that name. Boulogne, do me justice, or by heaven, it is not France shall hold thee, impious duke.
Nay, if you be so hot, my lord of Brabant, then to your plea that doth concern him most, the law is this, that he shall lose his head that steals away the heir of any prince, if not a prince that doth commit the rape.
So is my plea.
I grant, but void in this. He is a prince that stole away thy daughter. This is not Ferdinand, but Frederick, the heir of Boulogne, and my only son. Ah, my sweet boy, ah, my dear Frederick, here now I stand, and here doth stand my boy. In Christendom, let any two that dare aver it to the Father and the Son that he is not a great prince as Brabant.
There'll be one, any three, whate'er they be, and Brabant be thou one to answer us. Some honest man help me to Frederick, for joy I shall weep out mine eyes.
Bulon, how dost know him for thy son?
Why, cousin Brabant, you say you found him, hid in the sedges by the river. Even at that instant, and at the very place, the Duchess, my dear sister, perished, with whom my little boy was at that time. The place, the instant, and his certain age, the letters set to signify his name, the very manner of your finding him, when you departed from me with your army, in the pursuit of treacherous Mercury. These all affirm that he is only mine.
My lord of Boulogne, I embrace your love and all firm and true brotherly affection. I make your son, my daughters yours, and do entreat in princely courtesy. Old grief henceforth no more be thought upon.
Dear brother Brabant, your true princely kindness doth but forestall what I would have requested. Right noble prince, I give you Frederick, and I accept your sweet Odillia. Come, thou art now the Duke of Boulogne's daughter. Thy husband is the Duke of Brabant's son. Thou shalt be now my care, my son, thy father's. Thus do we make exchange betwixt each others. Thus should it be betwixt two loving brothers.
Nay, let me be one, I pray you, lords. I have no child left to inherit mine when I shall die. As long I cannot live, I freely give them all that e'er I have.
And as if he hadn't been doing so continually, he weeps.
1,000 thanks, true noble Eperonoun, brother of Brabant, Frederick, and fair princess. Embrace this noble lord and hold him dear.
All together now.
Father, guide, you call, and be ever honoured of us all.
I love it when there's a pile on and all. It works so well on Zoom. So yes, we've had this emotional plea for Frederick, and Emanuell just wanting to put the boot in, just happens to say all the plot points that are going to say we've heard the loophole. That's not a prince that doth commit the act, and then he explains very carefully how this person is a prince that nobody had figured out earlier, though everyone had noticed that he was terribly noble. So noble, very noble. Yes, and finally the final stylistic quirk of the closing of The Importance of Being Earnest drops like a steel shutter and sort of going, right, okay, really know where this play is now, don't we?
Yeah.
It's really starting to play that. It's really playing very hard. The lost baby romance plot tropes, they're all there. Eperonoun has wept out his eyes. I mean, probably almost literally. He's got them in his hands, and yeah, he's labelled with an F. I mean, it's not quite Superman, but it's close. It's close. Yes, let's set this on on the planet Krypton. No, whatever. Yeah,
he doesn't have a birthmark, but it's like he wanted to have a birthmark, right? Because that's what you always have. Yeah, like.
We could put that in. We can add a line.
Train ticket to be better.
Yes, if they're not checking the army lists.
It's like my son had a medallion or a handkerchief, and look, I had a matching one, and here it is, and yeah. So a token piece of clothing, a birthmark. We've seen this over and over again. It's a Gilbert and Sullivan too, right? Right.
Do you know what it's like to be an orphan? Eric?
Yeah, I was just amused by the fact that, it's like this, it becomes a trial sort of, but then the older generation sort it out, kind of like, it's almost like a backroom negotiation almost. And then they just kind of like, okay, yeah, it's fine now. We're sorted. And now we can move on with the rest of the plot.
Lynn.
Although that's often how a romantic comedy, a new comedy, a la Menander, works out, is that the highest authority in the room overrules the will of the blocking parent and says, no, it's fine, you'll have to live with it. So it's all really quite true to form in terms of how things get resolved in a romance or a new comedy.
And yes, is Eperonoun sort of at the end there as also handing over an inheritance as well? I mean, it's like, they're getting. We're talking about who gets the dowry. Whether that money earlier is being used as dowry. No. Eperonoun's stepping in. That's what a nice chap. Just valiant in battle and just all round good egg. Briony.
Yeah, it's convenient that he doesn't seem to have ever tried to look for this missing son that his sister died with, because there's all these ways that he could have found it. It seems like he's not even ever bothered to ask anyone. Did anyone find a baby round about this place with all this stuff with F embroidered on it, monogrammed clothes or anything? No, he's just not bothered. And oh, look, brilliant! It's just worked out lovely in the end.
Well, that's what happens when you're in a play. I mean, that's obviously how it works. I mean, you just flick a switch. Kyle.
That whole romantic recognition scene is usually so joyful and and sincere, but the crying Eperonoun changes it into more of a more humorous moment, I think, than usual, or at least it seems that way.
It does feel like whoever's playing Eperonoun will need some sort of prosthetic tubing attached so that just shoots of water is constantly happening, because it's just. We have the technology. We can do that. Okay. Well, before there's more joy to come, for we have more people bursting on stage. For, as everyone said, or the altogether line, our Father, guide and comfort we you call, and be you ever honoured of us all. Just for those at home who would like to have actually been able to decipher what was said. We have the entrance of Villiers, Oriana and Diana from wherever they were.
Justice, my lord Boulogne, I beseech you.
My friend, what is thy cause? Then let us know. Sit down, good brother Reverend, and the rest.
My lord, my suit is here against a widow that I have long time sued in way of marriage.
Let me with judgment view this woman well. Stay, let me see. It is my Oriana, and my poor Diane, my dear loved girl. Alas, poor souls, what woe and misery have you endured since I left you last? I will forbear my knowledge till I see to what effect this cause will sort unto. Tell on your case, of whence and what's your name?
I am of Rochelle, and my name Villiers.
Of what profession?
A merchant I, my honourable lord.
But though you be a merchant, I believe here is somewhere you must not deal with all. Thinkest thou, Diana, my dear lord, thy father will know us in this scepter's poor disguise?
Oh, yes, we have to swap parts mid-scene because of doubling issues.
Madam, I know not, for much time is passed since he at Newkirk parted with us last. She must be widow, if the merchant's wife, but by this match I think he'll hardly thrive.
Master Villiers, you shall have justice, sir. Speak in your cause. You have free liberty.
My lord of Boulogne, thus then stands my case. This gentlewoman, whom my suit concerns, being embarked for England with her daughter, to seek her husband, as she made report, twixt Sluice in Flanders, where she went abroad, and Goodwin's Sands, by study adverse winds, was beaten back upon the coast of France, and came to Rochelle, where my dwelling is. I, taking liking of her, entertained her, led her a house convenient as I thought, and lent her money to supply her wants, and afterwards, won by affection, I did solicit her in way of marriage, but still she did defer me with delays, because she said her husband still did live. But for my kindness, If her husband died, she told me then I was the likest to speed. She, having got some money by her needle, desired me to let her have a lease. The lease was drawn, to which she put her name, widow, which here her own hand testifies, which being thus confessed by herself, I, by her promise, claim her for my wife.
The case is plain.
That he shall go without me.
Lady, what way have you to avoid this bond? Here is your hand set to confirm the deed.
But not my heart, and that I will be sworn. Here's one I think that hath had that too long to leave it now, or else I have more wrong. Unto the scrivener I referred the same, and he put that word, widow, to my name. I humbly do entreat your highness' favor, for if you knew where I had dwelt before, I think you would do that for me, and more.
Speak, gentlewoman. Where have you been bred?
I was attending in my younger years, and this sweet girl, though now thus mean and poor, upon the Duchess, the Duke's wife of Boulogne, though I say it, one that she loved once, whilst she did flourish in prosperity, and had not fortune much impaired her state, I had not stood in such need of friends.
Oh, and she weeps. She weeps.
But when the greatest into danger falls, the weakest still go unto the walls.
'Tis very true, that have I tried myself. Thy tears no longer can conceal my love. Rise, Oriana, rise, my sweet Diana, Lodowick's true wife, and his right virtuous. Embrace thy lost son Frederick once more, whom we suppose never to have seen. With him receive a daughter, Brabant's heir. He hath been foster father to thy boy, and both are here to full complete our joy.
My dear Frederick?
My beloved brother.
Oh, happy Frederick, finding such a mother, and such a sister, father, friends, and all. Never a man did better fortune fall. Oh, sorry.
So that was Frederick, wasn't it?
Yes.
Everybody's being somebody else. It can be so confusing. Eric, give us those lines in authentic styling.
Okay, yeah. Oh, happy Frederick, finding such a mother and such a sister, father, friends, and all. Never the man did better fortune fall.
How say you, master merchant? Is your suit void in law or no? Is she a widow now?
No, my good lord, and I rejoice thereat.
Thanks, but we will requite thy love and kindness extended to them in necessity, and our reward thou shalt have liberally.
Enter a messenger.
What news would be? Thou comest in such haste.
His Highness from his holy pilgrimage is home returned, and doth require your presence.
That's but our duty. Welcome is our king. His Highness now shall sentence traitorous Anjou, according as his treachery deserves, and all our joy shall be disclosed to him that have so happily this day befallen. Thus time the saddest heart from sorrow calls, and helps the weak long thrust unto the walls.
Yes, just about manages to get the title in on the closing line, and the king's back. He's probably can't come back because he's probably doubling as somebody else. If the king isn't someone like Eperonoun, then I'd be very surprised because that's probably the kind of doubling I'd do. Yeah. King's back. Yay. So the Villiers, which is a very sort of late subplot extension. I mean, I don't think they actually went very far. I think they just ended up down the street and they just ended up in somebody else's slightly dodgy, exploitative-y situation kind of thing. I mean, there's almost part of me going, was there an original thought where they're it's the same person as Jakob, and that it's just that why did they have to leave? And I do love the yes, Villiers. No, my good lord, and I rejoice thereat. Yeah, sure you do, sure you do. Yeah,
You have to say that.
He's just a merchant. Everybody else has swords.
Yeah.
Choices.
So yeah, we've got to the end. The king's back. The king who was useless and who destabilized his own country, and frankly probably should be killed by his own people for creating the situation that has ruined everybody's lives. Because, you know, in a sort of realpolitik way, I don't think he'd survive the course. I don't think he would. But yeah, apart from that, you know, king's back. Everyone's united. Everybody lives happily ever after. Apart from Mercury, no idea what's happening with Mercury. He's just been off stage for ages, and nothing's happened there. Eric,
What about Bunch? Are we just assuming that he's going to become a sexton and stay where he was?
I think he found his natural home. I think he found a niche for himself.
He's down the pub with the vicar.
He's down the pub with the vicar. He's going to stumble about doing his very repetitive chores in what is clearly a very, very badly organised parish. I think he's going to be fine. I think, you know, local character, everyone's going to love him. Do a bit of bodging here and there. You know, go about, do a bit of his trade in between, moonlight. Yeah. In a sense, what the moral of the story is that someone who lived an itinerant life without any sense of home and stability has found himself a regular 9-to-5 job and settled down. And maybe you should just give up on your hopes and dreams, and if you live an alternative, you know, just settle down, just get a normal job, just do that. Just do that. You know, that's maybe... No, I'm being silly. I'll just ignore me. Okay. Any other thoughts about close of the play, Lynn?
Well, just back to Bunch. You know, he's never been afraid to work. He's, you know, I did this job and then I became a mender of clothing. So, I mean, he's always worked for a living and been willing to work hard. It's like, oh, people around, I don't get enough work because people around here are too thrifty. They do their own mending, but I would pay your tavern bill if I could. You know, he's not afraid of work. You know, he's not afraid to dig graves for a living. He expects to be paid, but you know, he's willing to earn what he gets.
Obviously, he doesn't have enough work because he's always asking people if they brought a terrible contagion to town. Because he obviously wants to do more digging.
But he doesn't want money for nothing. He wants work to earn his money. So there's something I think we're supposed to admire about that type.
Yeah. Cheynne, then Eric, then Aliki.
Just something that Lynn said that kind of prompted the thought is, I think during this time you have the beginning of like enclosure acts, you have the vagrancy acts, so you're almost required to work. And I think this might be like a comment on, look at this, like you don't have to be like one thing. It's kind of like a jack of all trades thing, sort of thing. Like how when there's no jobs, people are just kind of forced to do multiple odd jobs, and they're maybe trying to like, comment on that, or maybe normalize it, or maybe just bring it to the in view of the audience.
Eric.
Yeah, I was just wondering if Bunch is working on commission with that, like graves, you know, get a sort of percentage per grave. No, I'm just kidding. It's just, I don't know, it's interesting how we got Weakest Goeth to the wall, like almost repetitively in this last scene. We got one mention in, I think it was what do you call it? I don't know, scene 13 or something, 14, maybe 12, I don't know. And then we got it almost all the time in this one. So.
Yeah, no. On your point about the on commission, you're absolutely right. You'd expect money. The money will pass hands. I think we get this in the Old Wives' Tale, where there's a point of contention about paying for the burial of someone. So I don't know whether that goes to the sexton or there's a bone of contention whether it goes to the parson. I'm just trying to look it up now and failing. But yeah, that's why he wants it. He wants the money. Aliki.
I'm just puzzled a little bit by the ending of the Villiers and Oriana business. Why does she say she used to work for the Duchess and all of that kind of stuff? She doesn't, and why doesn't Ludwig just say, "It's my wife and daughter" to her? Instead he's going, "Oh, so who are you, madam? Where were you bred?" It's all a bit, yeah? Am I missing something?
It's just what you do in these situations. I mean, it seems it's often mean it's when you actually analyse what the people are always doing in these scenes of going, sometimes it's to test people, sometimes it's to do things, and sometimes it's just to let the scene play out because that's entertainment. It's irony. I think we could attempt to dig too deep into a text that isn't necessarily that got that much depth to it. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, it's another classic example of early modern disguise being so brilliant that nobody recognises anybody.
Yes, they don't recognise him, do they?
No. I mean, they've either got incredibly poor eyesight or are in the three short blanks territory.
Well,
but he recognises them.
He recognises them, yeah.
No, right away.
Right away. No, he sees them straight off. And it's not marked in the script as an aside, but it clearly is an aside where he turns to the audience and goes, "Oh, it's them. I will forbear my knowledge till I see to what effect this cause will sort unto." He's going, "Well, why? Just say hi, dear. Give her a kiss." Lynn.
Well, I suppose if you are the actor playing Lodowick and you want to motivate that in a more kind of methody way, your rationale might be, here's my wife coming in with another man. I want to see what's between them before before I reveal our relationship. So like, oh, I wonder what's going on here with my wife and this guy. And there might be something about physically the way, the Villiers like has her by the arm and is kind of bringing her in, that there's something about the way that staged that might make him suspect, ooh, I wonder what's going on here. This man is acting like he's got a claim to my wife's person. Let's see what's going on before I tell everyone who she is in relation to me.
And just briefly going back to the point about paying the sexton, from The Old Wives' Tale by George Peele. Sextons says over a grave of chaps who they're burying, "Parish me mo parishes, pay me my fees, and let the rest run on the quarter's accounts, and put it down for one of your good deeds, a God's name, for I am not one that curiously stands upon merits." I.e., I'm not waiting for the county council to pay me. Give me my money now. Or I'm not putting him in the grave. Lucrative business potentially for Bunch. Briony, were you waving?
Yeah, just there's a really nice kind of lightness to this, like just all over. It doesn't ever quite plunge into anything terrible, and the themes are kind of so familiar that I don't know. It just made the ending really, even though it could be a bit cheesy, it just felt really satisfactory to me.
I mean, as we're sort of drifting now towards final thoughts, I mean, it's actually now to try and connect all the dots. So in our first session, there's one quite grim scene where say people die, and there's sort of marauding people coming into the country. And that sort of centres on a bit of a false direction, a false scent on this, of thinking, okay, this actually could be quite a dark play. And I think now that we've read the whole play, we can look back at those earlier ones and earlier scenes and sort of reevaluate them and say, well, look, if this is where the play's going, maybe we have to tone down some of those edges a bit, because we can't go there. And also Jakob as well can't be too terrifying a figure because of where the play goes. He could be played as a really quite obnoxious, terrifying sex pest. But he clearly can't be, because the rest of the play completely defies that. And I say, now we've got this far, we can speak perhaps better to the beginning of the play for those who were here for the beginning of the play. If not, obviously, you can only speak for the play that you have read. Who has been waving? I saw hands and I didn't take any. Who wants to speak next before I go to final thoughts? Carl.
Mine was a kind of final thought, I think. I mean, it's just sort of summative about this ending. That whole recognition, resurrection, revelation kind of quality of the endings of these plays, and this one has it in spades, it seems like. I wonder about like its Christian qualities and these. I mean, with this being a lot of Dutch stuff, if there's some Puritan stuff going on with that, I'm always kind of curious about that.
Oh yes, we had definitely a lot of. There were definitely solid hints of Protestantism in the way Nick was introduced to us, actually, because he enters carrying a book in the previous session, and the Lodowick tries to get his sympathy by speaking in Latin to him, and Nicholas goes, "No, I think you'll find I'm a good Protestant. We don't do Latin here. Thank you very much." But then also we have the other element with Jacob being a more problematic Dutch figure in terms of that it seems to be quite unpleasant to the Dutch on that level. And so there's sort of different things tugging across this text. Other thoughts, Cheynne? Were you waving or?
Yeah, Kyle just said something that kind of reminded me about something during that time about Protestantism, that there is a certain work ethic involved in that, like the Protestant work ethic. So perhaps that was what Lodowick was kind of reflecting or projecting on stage when he took so many jobs in such a short amount of time.
Yes, that's a point, because of course he does go on a journey, doesn't he? He goes from being this entitled, privileged chap with not a care in the world, chatting with the king, and he then goes into a world of work. I don't know that we see him changed by this world of work. I mean, there is. This is the thing, a play which is only really interested in story. It's not necessarily interested in interiority of characters. And that's not a criticism. That's just what the play's doing. It just wants to tell a story and, make us feel a bit and tell a few jokes. So I don't know if that's a journey we can really take. The actor can take that journey. I think there might be things you can dig out of that to give Lodowick a sense of gaining a Protestant work ethic. Maybe we could give that as his subtitle: "The Weakest Goeth the World, the Wall, or How to Gain a Protestant Work Ethic." Maybe not. Eric.
Yeah, but it is a bit like Shoemaker's Holiday, where you've got the sort of what's his face? I was going to say Hans, but that's not his actual name. Character sort of becoming a shoemaker, although for different reasons. Obviously, that's because he avoids the war, not because he's
but again, sort of, privilege going into work, yes.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you start to wonder how on earth the shoes were. Anyway, details. And also the ending feels very Shoemaker's Holiday because of the the woman who Jane, who was in love with Ralph, kind of doesn't really, or Rafe, doesn't get threatened. Well, like gets threatened for marriage, but then sort of goes, "No, I am going to choose my life," and sort of it's a different situation, of course, but yeah, it's similar.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. There are some really interesting parallels there, and actually the other parallel, the women are working, they are doing it. They have earning power, and the amount of there's a lot of good research, I think, at the moment on the amount of actual solid work that women are doing in a mercantile sense is far greater than perhaps we previously thought at the time, and starting to break into apprenticeships and things like that in a way that hadn't previously been a thing. Okay, we're into final thoughts. So if you have any other little tangly things, start folding them in. Eric, do you have any final thoughts about the play overall? You've been here throughout. I think we've got a sense of it now. In terms of how do you sell it, I'm sort of thinking, well, it's the importance of being earnest, but with battles. So we know what this thing is now. I know what it is. Thank God. Anyway, sorry, Eric.
Yeah, I'm still confused though. Like, I mean, considering. I don't know. I think it kind of has. Well, it's like that braid analogy I used the other day. It's kind of still kind of very. It's not very tight in terms of, like, it throws you all over the place. Is what I mean. And it just kind of, but it's still very economical in some ways. I don't know. It's a very strange play. Like, if you were pitching this, would you pitch it as a rom-com? I mean, obviously, as we've been discussing in the chat, or like sort of, for marketing reasons, not anything else. Then again, I guess it kind of, yeah, it's fun. It's light, aside from the murder. I mean, there's a part of me going, it's probably like a bit Blackadder-y at times, like sort of dabbling in sort of ambition or unsatisfied ambition, as well as the romance plot that just works out because it has to.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think we need to slightly massage the earlier murdery bits, but maybe just go full parody on that, and that you can get through to the other side on that. Elizabeth, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just very briefly. I don't think this play succumbed to the curse of the final session. I think it kind of hung together quite well to the end. It was a shame we didn't see the king come back on. The messenger told us that the king was back. I think it has a really good array of characters. I think one thing that the play manages to do quite well is its characterization. I loved Eperonoun and all his crying. I thought that was hilarious. I still think that this would be quite a good sell, now that we've got to the end, even though it has its problematics with like time and space and where we are. I think those are things that we can kind of like quite easily rectify on stage with like a sign, just like a sign that says where they are, kind of thing. So I think it hangs together quite well. And it's just a shame we don't know who wrote it.
Yes. I don't know if I'm going to open that particular can of worms to see who wants to dive in on attribution, but yeah, lots of names have been suggested, and yeah, it is a bit of a shame. Yeah, and it's a shame we don't have the king at the end. But I say I'm fairly certain he's doubling, and I'm just being briefly just going through who the primary characters are, the ones who kind of have to be on stage throughout, or could double in a very straightforward way, and I'm only up to about 9 actors so far. I've got a lot of supernumeraries to get through yet, but at the moment I'm sort of going, it's almost you could almost keep it under double figures, and so there's part of me wondering about the touring option for this, about the nature of the text there, whether there is a deliberate squeezing of scale, again with that battle scene at the end, in which we don't have a battle scene. Literally 2 people walk on stage and off again while someone commentates, so that maybe this is the mini version, not the full deluxe. Not necessarily in length, just in terms of scale of how it's produced, which makes it easier for us. It makes it a much more fleet of foot show, and in fact, with some clever adjustments, we might even get it down to fewer actors. But I haven't quite got there yet. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yes, well, I have a soft spot for romance, so yeah, I ended up really liking it, and the dramaturg in me is all ready. The wheels are turning. I've thought of lots of specific ways that I feel like we can make the structure hang together and feel less weird, and smooth out some of those kind of icky bits. If I would introduce Eperonoun in the first scene, like him saying, I don't know, Your Highness, about trying to get these guys together. There's a lot of bad blood between them, and I don't trust this Mercury guy. And the king is like, it's fine. And Eperonoun going, okay, whatever, you're the king, and I'm your loyal general, and I will champion your cause no matter what happens. So we introduce him briefly in the beginning. He doesn't show up for a while, but he will feel a little less out of nowhere if we put him earlier in the play. And Jakob, yeah, he's creepy. And what I really wanted, and I think what I would add, is when his evil plan doesn't work out and the women earn enough money sewing to pay their bill and leave him, he's like, yeah, I was a rat. I'm going to do better. So we have a little redemption there. And maybe Hernando doesn't kill those 2 poor burghers. Maybe he just chases them off stage. Stuff like that. So I have lots of ideas, but I really think you could, once you decide, okay, it's a romance, that's what we're going for. And there might be some tonal shifts, but we're going to try to keep it a little more contained in that romance expectation sphere. I actually find it quite enjoyable and satisfying, and I think I could fix it.
Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only way you could bill this, it would be as an entertainment. Well, unless you go full on with Lynn's suggestion and basically rewrite large chunks of it. I suspect Lynn and I would be at different ends of the scale in terms of where the rewriting happens. As far as I'm concerned, an awful lot of the romance plot early on was eminently disposable. And a lot of the rest of it just seems to be, well, other theatres have done quite well with battle plays, but we can't afford a full army, so let's just have a guy sort of giving us the running commentary. There's one or two good gags in it, but it's relatively thin material.
Briony, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what's been said. It's very workable, this play. I think it's not that difficult to imagine it actually being staged. I don't think it takes that much reworking to get it there. What I'm a bit surprised about is like how much I've enjoyed it for how light it is, because I am a child of darkness. There is no awful, irredeemable villain in this. None, not one. You know, and even like when there's kind of like the Villiers thing is a bit, but actually he does say the whole time, look, if your husband's dead, then you're my wife. So there is even some level of honorability like that. I don't know. It just, yeah, it's very light, and I still enjoyed it. But I guess it just there's something about it. It kind of holds you, this one.
It's been that kind of week. I mean, it's like I feel the same because even with the evening sessions we've been doing Hyman's Triumph, and you know, which is not my kind of thing because it's all love and romance and it's all sweet and lovely. I absolutely loved it. It was such a lovely play. Some really lovely bits in it. Lovely speeches, and you know, it softened my evil dark heart. And yeah, I entirely agree. Cheynne, any final thoughts?
You said something a little earlier, just a moment ago, that kind of sparked, something that I was thinking about is, I think there is a mobile aspect to this play, meaning that I think because it has a little bit of romance, a little bit of violence, a little bit of salaciousness, and just with all the moving parts and this, you know, like I said, there is no big produced stage like battle scene. It's two people commenting on it. I think it definitely is maybe written or designed for like a mobile troupe, like an acting troupe who kind of travels around England and just does like a little play in front of everybody. And I think because it has such a broad spectrum of what it covers, you know, it definitely could be a possibility because you got something for everyone.
Isn't that nice? Something for everyone. All the kiddies at the back there for the executions. Aliki, any final thoughts?
I've developed a theory, and my theory is that this is an actor's play. That it's only really interested in giving actors fun things to do, and it doesn't really much care about anything else. The story is so full of all of the tropes. There's so many places where it seems rife for gags and upstaging and rife with gags. And I think, for example, it would really reward the rehearsal game of upstage the person speaking constantly. I think that's what it is. The story doesn't add up because it's not about story. It's about taking a bunch of really funny actors and getting them to do you do your lovelorn maiden, you do your elderly knight, and all so forth.
Alan has a thought on that.
Yeah, well, actually, I was thinking of what Cheynne was saying earlier about this being a touring production, and in that context, you could actually bill this as this is the greatest hits in the London theatre in the last season. We've nicked all the best bits.
Well, I say I don't know if that there's any real evidence for that that far. I think Aliki's angle is more, that they're playing to the strengths of certain actors, and which is a slightly different thing. I don't really know very much about the Earl of Oxford's men as a playing company. I don't know if they are. I suspect they are more of a touring unit off the top of my head. I really don't know this. But that's what my Scrooge McDuck feeling into the pile of gold coins senses are telling me. So I wonder if that's the way that works. And of course, if you have got a touring show, then all sorts of weird things happen to scripts on tour. If this is what this reflects, where you make decisions on the hoof that work in the production, but don't always make sense when you actually sit down and look back at them on the script later on, going, "Hang on. But we never explained this. Hey, nobody seemed to notice. That's fine." That's what happens to plays once you've done a month at Edinburgh. Carl, went to you earlier. You sort of said it might be a final thought, but do you have a final thought to throw in?
Sure. One other thing that struck me was that we've seen, or I've been noticing, a lot of endings with trials, with kind of attenuated trials and forgiveness. There's a little forgiveness there, although I thought Villiers was bad, and that might be just because I wasn't at the other sessions. So,
well, we've never met him before today, and yeah, he's not a great guy.
Yeah, so there is a little bit of that like pardoning that seems to, I don't know, it's just interesting that there's that trial and kind of a pardoning in some ways of him, if I read it.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of that's more our modern viewpoint of him. In a sense, he's. I think he's still a bit sleazy, but in an early modern sense, the offer he is making is fair. And it's actually the nature of the trial stuff. Use the language used there when they're talking of rape is using that point about stealing away, and that definition of the word. And so this is very much about stealing of rights, and of course the plot of the play is about effectively stealing a baby, in a sense, the lost baby. So there's an interesting sort of thought outness to the whole play, because we were saying earlier we didn't know what it was going on, but once we got to the end, actually everything in the play sort of makes sense. There's little bits that are a bit fudged around the edges, but actually no, it's all been, someone sat down and plotted this at some point. Yeah. Lynn, then Eric.
So I just wanted to defend Villiers a little bit. One thing we haven't mentioned is that he thinks that Oriana has nothing, that she's basically an ordinary person, fallen on very hard times, and she has nothing. He's a successful merchant. And marriage is, to some extent, even now, let's admit it, transactional. And he is making her a really good offer. Like, look, I have all this money. I care about you. I want to take care of you. I want to, I'm asking you to be my domestic partner, and that's a good deal for you. So, I don't think Villiers is supposed to be creepy. He found someone that he cares about and that he thinks would make a good partner for him, and he's making her a really good offer.
Eric?
As you always ask, I'm kind of wondering, where do you put the interval in this? Because these plots are so disparate, different from each other, that you kind of go, well, an audience needs enough information to understand what's going on, but you also don't want them to go, okay, so what's the point of this? We kind of you want them to come back from the bar, basically.
It's tricky. I mean, just looking slightly after the halfway mark, I think it's possibly once Lodowick has got his new job as the sexton, and he's heard from Bunch, and those threads have all been tied together. But before we have the big scene where we introduce Eperonoun. Because if we don't introduce Eperonoun at the very beginning of the play, it makes sense to introduce him at the very beginning of the second half, to say, okay, he's going to be a big character in the second half. Whoever he was playing in Act 1, he can, done a proper costume makeup job so he looks different, or she. That you've got there. So I think it's probably between 12 and 13, but I'm not necessarily sold on that. But it's a good question. Because, yeah, some plays resist an interval. I don't know if that's a really punchy ending to a first half, but it feels like enough has been resolved to then unfurl later. You know, it's either that you do it after the scene where they capture Mercury, but because you don't see him again in the second half of the play after that point. So there's a sort of either or decision. Any other thoughts before I close the session? No, we're all walled out, as it were. All that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.
Bye.
Thou art a naughty lord.